Thank you very much. Call the meeting to order of the SAU41 Governing Board. Would you like to do an introduction?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I'm Tom Solon from the co-op school board, chair of the SAU Governing Board. Start down the far end.
Sure, Beth Williams, and I'm with the co-op from Brookline.
Ann Wake Deep School with Hollis Brookline. I'm sorry, with Hollis.
Cindy Van Conant with Co-op Hollis.
Colleen Mikovich with the Brookline School Board.
Kelly Zacher with the Brookline School Board.
Andy Corey, school superintendent.
Jean Bergstrom, Assistant Superintendent.
Carol Roy, Hollis School Board and Vice Chair of the Governing Board.
Amy Kilner, Hollis School Board.
Rob Mann, Co-op School Board.
Krista Whalen, Co-op School Board.
Thank you very much. Start off by appointing a process observer. Any volunteers before I pick one? Cindy, you up for it?
Sure.
Thank you. Cindy Van Conant is the process observer. Thank you, Cindy.
Sure.
Any agenda adjustments?
Just one, under deliberations, we'd like to discuss a BA certification requirement. The state is changing the business administrative certification requirements, and it has an impact on New Hampshire retirement in terms that it would save us money the sooner we do it. So we'd like to potentially do that tonight.
Where would you like to place that? Deliberations, beginning, end?
Like 1A, right after the treasurer stipend.
Okay. Any objections? Any other requests for adjustments?
Nope.
The only thing I will point out is we do have a non-public on it. I don't know that the timing is what will be needed, but so the adjournment may be a little bit later. Or it might be earlier, who knows, depends how things go. Okay, we have several, or at least a few sets of minutes to approve. Is this correct that the other ones have not been approved? All the ones that she listed have not yet been approved?
I believe that she has them all.
We'll start with the May 11th meeting, which was the organizational meeting. I have a motion to approve the minutes with the following amendments. Page 3, line 12, correct the spelling of member Mannion's first name, and no others unless anyone else may have some.
So moved, so moved.
Oh, sorry, I didn't have any. Second.
Okay. Second. Does anyone have any other amendments to offer or any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, we'll see.
I've got it.
I'm just looking to see who's not eligible.
Mikovich, Roy, Wake, DePascal, and Williams. I'm just abstaining.
So all those in favor?
I wasn't at the May meeting?
I didn't say you, I said Williams. Did you change your name?
Is it 6? Yeah. Any opposed and abstentions? 4 abstentions. So 6-0-4 passes. And the next set of minutes is the non-public from same May 11th date. I have a motion to approve the non-public minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Krista,
Second.
second by Amy. And on these, Mikovich, Roy, Sky, and Perry Williams were not in attendance. All those in favor? Now we've got 7. Opposed and abstentions. Of course, abstention again. And let's see, then June 13th. Special
No,
estimate.
I'm just opening the local copies I have. Downloaded them all.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a public meeting?
Yeah, there's a public meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, they're both.
Yeah, so we've got, public minutes from June 13th. A motion to approve as written.
So moved.
Moved by Carol.
Second.
Who wants it?
Whalen.
Who wants
You can do
We
the
have
next one.
contention.
And not present were Reed and Williams. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 9. So it's gonna end up, we're gonna have to do the calculator numbers kind of thing, but it'll end up being
Mhm.
9, 0, whatever.
Mhm.
How that has worked out. Abstentions, so 1 abstention. And then we have,
Non-public meeting minutes aren't linked.
it's showing it, there was no,
I submitted them
Mhm.
on June 27th or June
Okay.
28th.
they were not circulated for.
They were not circulated. I was,
So we'll have to.
We'll just postpone them until the December.
And then July 12th, public meetings, no noted amendments. Move to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Amy.
Yep.
Second.
Second by Krista. Members absent, Haig, Van, Nikovich, Perry, Roy, Swally, Williams. I wasn't there. Who is it, Zach or Zaker?
Sacker.
Okay. Yeah, it's like, he didn't make it up.
Change your name.
Just wants to do it after.
Any discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed and abstentions? 6 abstentions. And August 23rd.
That was the 5-minute meeting.
Okay.
Like the interim treasurer.
That was the treasurer.
Yeah, motion to
That's great.
approve as written.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Krista. And absent, myself, Mann, Bill Babcock, Reed, Henry, Stoll, Van Conant, and Whalen. All those in favor? Opposed? And abstentions?
You guys
Send.
could tell one was right before a co-op board meeting and one was right before a line.
I will be abstained and stand opposed as well.
Okay.
So are there 5 abstentions?
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for the fund balance. And what we need is a motion to recess until the conclusion of the public hearing on the SAU41 fund balance.
I move to recess until the conclusion of the public hearing on the SAU41 fund balance.
Second.
All those in favor? It is unanimous. Who is conducting?
For newer board members, each year at this time, we give an update via a public hearing on the fund balance, because the fund balance at the SAU does not get returned to the taxpayers. The SAU Governing Board, during its May 2023 meeting, voted to approve the FY24 salaries for the SAU staff in excess of the FY24 budget. The result of that action may result in the use of the SAU fund balance if all other expenses for FY24 meet or exceed the budget. The FY24 budget for salary increases totaled $29,091 for both administrative staff and support staff. The actual salary increases voted by the governing board totaled $37,962, a difference of $8,871. While it is still early in the year, we are currently projecting a budget underrun of approximately $20,000 at the SAU. This is primarily due to the open receptionist position. This will be filled most likely in October. If this trend continues, we will not be funding the salary increases with fund balance. They will be funded via the FY24 budget. So that's always our intent, to give an update on that, to let people know. The current fund balance as of 7/1/23 is $309,169. The projected FY24 net income would be $20,921. So we're projecting the FY24 ending fund balance of $330,090. That is a percentage of our adopted budget of about 14.6%, and we have a targeted range of 7 to 10% typically. And we're going to discuss the potential use for that when we discuss the budget tonight, because it is starting to grow beyond where we normally like to keep that number. And I'll turn it back over to the chair for any comments from the public regarding the public hearing.
Well, Richard, Kelly. Very good. There are no members of the public present. And does anyone have any input that they received from the public to relay to this meeting? Then we will close the meeting at 6:24.
We have to make a motion to do that, sir?
To close it?
Yes, according to the outline. So I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Okay.
Still 6:24 though.
Just gonna say the same thing.
Do we have to go back, just point of order, do we have to go back into session?
No.
We can just,
We are
Continue.
recessed until the conclusion. So since we've hit the conclusion, we are no longer recessed.
So
I
we
see, by
reconvene.
automatically, we could go back into session. Okay, thank you for clarity on that.
Will we have any internal discussion specifically on what you presented?
We're going to talk about the fund balance during the budget discussion.
Okay.
So anybody could give their thoughts or opinions on that at that time. Okay. At this time, I'm going to move to the revenue and expense report for FY23. So this is the year ended 6/30/23.
Point of order, do we have to open up the floor for public input?
Correct.
So that it's open?
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
And we will now open our meeting to public input. And we are required to keep it open for 30 minutes. I don't know what practices all the boards have, but in the co-op, we generally, if there's no members of the public present, we continue on with our meeting. And if someone shows up, we do that.
Same.
So we will start the clock ticking at 6:26.
Thank you for catching that, Kelly.
Oh, you're welcome.
So the revenue expense report, the SAU had expenses of under budget of $112,145. Revenue came in under $39,884. So we had a net income of $64,744. This was primarily due to positions being vacant for periods of time. We had the assistant director's position vacant at the beginning of the school year. We had the office manager position vacant as well. So that $64,744 was added to the 7/1/2022 fund balance, giving us what we just talked about during the public hearing, a fund balance of $309,169. And that is the end of year for 6/30/23 revenue and expense report. If there are no questions, I would do the first quarter of the FY24, which is as of 10/2/2023. Right now, we are projecting a budget balance of $20,921, the same dollar amount we talked about during the public hearing. And again, that is also a result of staff turnover, which is presently the receptionist position. If nothing were to change, we're projecting that $20,921 would be added to the 7123 balance in the unreserved fund balance of 309,169 for a total of $330,090, which would be 14.6% of our adopted budget. It's very, very early in the year at the SAU, just like it is at the districts. So these are projections that will get tighter and more realistic as we move through the school year. Any questions on the FY24 first quarter? Okay. Seeing none, with the board's permission, I will go into the first, or what will be the second draft of the SAU budget. For the folks at home, the SAU budget has a budget subcommittee that is made up of members of each of our school boards, as well as members of the Hollis Budget Committee, the Co-op Budget Committee, and the Brookline Finance Committee. That group met, had a very, very good discussion, and we were at that point, about a 5% increase. What happened shortly after that meeting is the guaranteed maximum rate for health insurance and dental insurance came out. Those numbers, the GMR for health is 18.7%, and the dental is 4.7%. We have seen those numbers before. On occasion, they have stayed that high. On other occasions, they have come down. We always work off a worst-case scenario, so that's why I say this is draft number 2, as Kelly got those numbers and went back in. And let me just give you a little bit of kind of the big picture of the budget, and then I'll kind of go into a little more specifics. But that 18.7% means an increase of $58,227 to the SAU budget, which is just about 3% without doing anything. The dental is, even though it's an increase, it's much lesser amount because of the cost of dental. But when we look at just health, dental, Medicare, and New Hampshire retirement, that accounts for $73,366 of our SAU increase. Almost half.
Excuse me, Andy.
Yes.
When you're referring to these numbers, could you just note which line number they're on, just to be able to find these numbers easily as you're reading them off, or are they not on here?
I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you very much.
So I'm starting, I've combined some things, but I'm on the last page, line item 128. That's where you should be able to see the $58,227 for health insurance.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you'll see there, down a few lines, the increase for New Hampshire retirement and Medicare and dental. And as I said, those four numbers are totaling $73,366.
What's driving the retirement increase? I thought we were in the second year of fixed rate.
It's just a salary increase.
Okay.
It's a function of that.
Okay.
So if you take out obviously the health insurance, it's kind of what we thought would be in that 3 to 5% increase range, but we find ourselves up around the 7%. The hourly wage for hourly personnel, so our secretaries, our administrative assistants, the bookkeepers, that is on line 123, and that's $14,796, which is a 3% increase. For our senior management, we budgeted in 3% increases, so when you add all senior management, Kelly, Gina, myself, IT, special ed, those pieces, which are all shown separately throughout the budget, that accounts for $23,447.
How was that number chosen?
The 3%, it's,
No, the pool.
what do you mean, the pool?
Well, I mean,
Who's it based on?
It's 3% of upper management, so Gina, myself,
Does
Kelly.
include you in it?
Yep. And the 3% was arrived at because that's just about what CPI is right now. Somewhere between 2.8 and a little over 3 has been where it's been fluctuating. Okay. There are not many other significant increases in the budget, except for two that I'd like to discuss with you. The first one is in terms of our HR director's position. In looking at comparisons to our neighbors in Bedford, Milford, Wyndham, and Amherst and Sauhegan, we have a concern that we've significantly fallen below them. And let me give you the example. Our HR director's salary is presently $72,000. Bedford is $110,380. Milford is $96,000. Wyndham is $101,764, and Amherst Sauhegan is $111,102. So working with Kelly and calling around and trying to look at a salary adjustment to put us to be more competitive, we have put in this budget for just the HR director an 8.6% increase, which would take their salary from the currently making of $72,000, then proposing $78,160. Also next year, the director of HR will be supervising another individual because we are combining the efforts of our receptionists to also do some HR duties. And we're doing that because we're onboarding probably 60 to 90 people a summer now, between paraprofessionals, kitchen staff, custodians, professional staff. It's just a really large number. So we do have that increase in the budget, and that accounts for the major increases. With the receptionist position, there's approximately the same increase, a little over $6,000, as we tried to put the salary between what I'll call the receptionist number and the HR number, so that we were not increasing headcount at all, but rather consolidating two positions into one, so it didn't cost us another benefits package or something in that nature. So the salary for the office receptionist, HR person, shows an increase of $6,701 presently. I will also tell you that we have advertised at least 2, if not 3 occasions where we've had nobody apply, or people who call, the minute we tell them the hourly rate for the receptionist, they're thank you, but no thank you. So this will provide us with some greater stability for HR and allow us to attract a quality person to be the receptionist and do those functions. So when I add the benefits, the hourly increase for our staff at 3%, the salaries for upper management at 3%, and those 2 adjustments, one for the HR director and one for the receptionist manager, I arrive at $124,470, which is the bulk of our increases. Everything else is minor increases, 1,000 here, 1,000 there. The total piece, and now I'm on the page 6. And we do a number of comparisons so people can kind of look at it. The first comparison, and I'm going to work off the middle column using fund balance because that's what I'm going to be recommending very shortly. We have the FY24 adopted budget of $2,268,374. We have the FY25 proposed budget of $2,443,539, which is a dollar change of $175,165. We are recommending that we utilize $45,233 from fund balance to offset that. when we use fund balance, we want to use funds that are a one-time expense or that will not result in a tax spike the following year. So to the far right, you see the details of how we arrived at the $45,233. First of all, it's made up of a merit pool, which is $35,033, which we have been allocating over the last few years through merit bonuses. Replacement equipment for computers is $4,000. New office equipment is $2,000. And a DSS course is $4,200. That's how we arrive at the $45,233. The reason we are comfortable taking the merit out of the fund balance this year and this year only is because the following year, FY '26, we will have the differential between my leaving and Gina's coming on board, so that salary delta will result in limited to no spike in the tax piece. But it also allows us to reduce the fund balance, and by doing that, if you look at the box right below the one I just described, the fund balance projection, we're currently at 309,169. We don't project anything for FY '24. In FY '25, if we use the 45,233, then we have a balance of 263,936, which is on the 10% end, and we'd like to keep the balance somewhere between 7 and 10%. I'd like to, I'll say, pause here and take any questions up to this point, and then if there's no questions, I'll continue.
I have a question. Are there any one-time other expenses that we can add to this box? I'd like to see the ending fund balance at or below that 10%. We're right now 0.8 above. Are there any opportunities there? That's what I'm asking.
It's difficult. We do have some potential coursework. Yep.
There's a little bit of a discrepancy here because the merit pay is paid on the previous year.
Right.
So at the end of this year, when we're about to enter into FY '25, we will decide on salary adjustments going into 2025, and we will also talk about bonuses, but those bonuses will get paid out of 2024. So the budgeted amount for 2024 is likely to be exceeded because we have not budgeted for merit.
Correct.
So that may bring it down some. And then second of all, if you look historically at where merit bonuses have been paid, the estimates are a little bit on the conservative side. So between that and unanticipated things coming into the year, I'm going to guess that we're going to seek some additional funding in that time frame.
And we quite possibly could, to Rob's point, we can look at, we do have a little bit of coursework going on at the SAU that we could look at coming out of the fund balance. And to Tom's point, I do think when everything washes out, that 10.8 will be closer probably to around 9, but would like to work off the concrete numbers. But I think we did this one time, probably my first or second year here, and we were able to avoid the majority of a spike. There was a little bit of a spike, but we really were able to kind of offset the taxpayer's burden by using the unreserved fund balance. What that does is it takes, right now, our budget stands at 7.72%. And because that is 1% is $20,000 approximately. So it's, from a dollar amount, it's not a significant increase, but from a percentage amount, it is. By using that fund balance, we reduce that to 5.73. And to Rob's point, if we're able to look at a couple more things, we might be able to get that closer to the 5%. The reason we accumulate fund balance typically is not the year-to-year surplus, because we run at a very close margin. It's when we go through a period of time where there's a position unfilled. That accumulates quickly, or occasionally, we've experienced a windfall because we'll hire somebody that maybe does not take a benefits package. So all of a sudden, we had budgeted for a two-person plan, which is our typical norm, so there is, $14,000 to $16,000 all of a sudden that is freed up if they take their spouse's plan and don't sign up with us. Just so you know the process, this budget goes back to the SAU Budget Subcommittee again. They will be provided this information as well as further updates. And then it comes back to the SAU Governing Board in December for a formal public hearing and then a vote on the budget, because this is the first number we need for the 3 budgets. And please remember that if we use the fund balance, the $129,932 is then apportioned between the 3 districts using the apportionment formula.
I make another comment. At the co-op budget committee meeting, the most recent one, there was a fairly lengthy discussion about the SAU budget, and there was an impression that we set a budget, it gets approved effectively in March, and then we immediately exceed it. And during discussion, it was recognized that the process is very drawn out, so we're picking numbers now. We will settle on them probably in December at best. And we still have like a 4 or 5 month gap. The other area of where there was lack of recognition is they were looking at the full compensation and looking at the merit bonuses that were paid and salary increases, and thinking of them all affecting the same budget, and they don't, because one comes out of a past budget, whereas the other is projected for the future budget. And they made the point that we may exceed certain lines, and as the superintendent said, in most cases it's due to trying to compensate for the fact that some people are doing multiple people's jobs. But we have not, in all the time that I can remember, had a situation where we overspent our bottom line, ever. That's why we have these balances. And I guess there's 2 sides of this coin. One is if we can do a better job at communicating how this budget is created. When I say do a better job, it's at our individual meetings, when we're meeting with our community in the overall budget discussions. The SAU budget often is just addressed as this is something that is dictated to us, but we all have a part in it. The second part of it is if we try to be conservative, but for instance, we've got an estimated increase number, and we have contractual obligations for our top administrators of how that will get paid is based on CPI. And in many cases, we've still been operating with vacancies. So when we're looking at these numbers, I personally appreciate the conservatism that's put in it, but I get the impression from the public and the budget committee that they're seeking, I guess, more realism and pragmatism than conservatism. So I think Kelly said the current projection is that the CPI is at 3 and change, or 3%.
It's 2.8 right now.
It is?
Well,
Okay.
that's what when we did this, it was 2.8.
So if we have confidence, I mean, granted, we don't want to overspend, but if we think we're still going to be in a situation where salaries in particular are viewed as on the low side for what the jobs that people are doing because of vacancies, and that we're not going to be fully staffed. They've asked, can we somehow factor that into the budget as it's presented, so that we're not looking like all of a sudden we approve a budget in March and in May we vote to increase it by a notable amount. I don't know how that's done. That was the request.
Well, I think-
I think it's important. I think we may take that to committee, because I like the fact that we're running a 3-year average on what we're actually doing. And I just want to revisit, are we building that into our planning at committee for the FY25? So it's a good thing to talk about next time we meet, yeah. Because we want to make sure we're right-sizing the merit, so we don't have to make these adjustments in May or June. So, anyway.
We also provided, just for your informational purposes, the merit pay history, as well as the merit as a percentage of the salaries, because the board has always worked hard to balance those to ensure that the SAU salaries remain competitive with our neighboring districts.
Where is that?
It should just be backup sheets, so they're, after the final budget page, you should have a fund balance page. Do you have that, Tom?
Yeah,
And then after the fund balance pay is the merit pay history.
that's the one.
Yeah, just to provide you information. So we will take the suggestions that have been made, and if there are any others, please let me know. If, as you go home tonight or tomorrow, you're sitting there and something comes up, please reach out to me, and we'll take it back to the SAU Budget Subcommittee, who really crafts these numbers, and then we'll determine what that apportionment looks like to each of the districts. And I want to thank everybody who is on the SAU Budget Subcommittee for all their time and effort that they have already given to get us to this point.
What will be the process in December?
December, we do a public hearing, which is the formal presentation, which of a budget that is usually at that point approved by the SAU Budget Subcommittee. We go through that process, take any public input, then we close public input, we then take board input, and then we arrive at the formal vote to move a particular number forward. And that would entail, in this case, if we use the fund balance, the authorization of the fund balance, because it's an offset to the amount that we would need to collect in taxes.
Do you have to authorize the use of the fund balance for things like the merit pay at that point in time?
I think it's the best way to go, because
How will we know the amount?
we would provide you, what we have is the 35,033 based on our merit pay history and our merit pay as percentage salaries.
So, but the amount that's taken out of the fund balance in FY24 will not be that amount. Will it be based on what was budgeted and versus for FY24? Follow me?
Well, from FY24, the budget we're in,
Yeah.
we had funded merit pay slightly different. We had put a number.
16, I think.
Yeah, and then what we typically do is use that and whatever the board decides to get us to our merit number. This time we're saying, and this was also a discussion, if you recall, last year we had a discussion around merit pay, and there was a strong appetite from the board to fund it and then work off distributing that fund. Rather than saying 16 and then ending up at 23, 24, let's do the history like Kelly did, get a number. We don't have to spend all that number. So even though we're saying that we have up to $35,000 coming from the fund balance. If the board only gave out X for merit pay, that's the number that comes out.
Okay, so you're using, the number that you have in the budget for FY '25 isn't necessarily what you're assuming will be for '24, but it's a place to use for calculating?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's the best way to say it.
Yeah, the 35,000 that's in the budget is what the merit will be for FY '25.
Right.
So what we have in FY '24 is 16, I think.
Right.
Right. So to your earlier point, Rob, that 16 will probably be offset by some money coming out of the under-reserve fund balance. We'll have already encumbered money for FY '25, and that's why that 10.8% will be probably closer to 9.
Yeah, okay.
All right. With the board's permission, I'll move on to the strategic plan draft. In your board packet, you have our first draft at a new strategic plan that will run from '23 to '28. 2023 being the year that we're writing it. Action items and everything start in the fall of 2024 to '28. We have a long way to go. Our hope is to get approval at our May meeting, which will allow for our summer planning and to build off of the strategic plan for each of the districts. What we will be doing is we are presently looking at a community survey to put out to gather input. We are also looking at running 1 or 2 public forums so people can come out and offer input. And we're looking at spending further time at both December and February with the board. What we're asking at this point is simply for you to carve out some time to read it, to go through it, and to kind of jot down your questions. And then Gina, myself, and Rick Bonds, who is our consultant on this, will be reaching out to board members so that we can have a discussion with individual board members, so that we make sure that we're hearing from each of the 3 district boards or individual board members' concerns or things that they think are either missing or need to be enhanced. Then we'll come back and have more of a workshop type of meeting to go through the product and hopefully be able to take it to a formal vote, like I said, in the May timeframe. But want the board to know this is built off of our plan that we did a number of years back. We feel quite confident that that plan has served us well, and this is a building block off of that. And it'll set us up with a very solid roadmap to 2028. Rick has done work around enrollment projections and what's going on at our schools. He's also identified what we would call strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and potential threats. And sometimes the threat is something that we may anticipate coming down from the state in terms of funding changes. Like right now, we're sitting with the state of New Hampshire still in a funding lawsuit on how we fund education. The solution to that, whenever it may arrive, could have a significant impact on education. So I would let each of you know that we'll be separating the board and reaching out and having those discussions with you, probably sometime early November, to give each of you a couple weeks to read it. And I understand that some members of the board view the strategic plan as the best thing since sliced bread, and other members of the board are not as gung-ho on a strategic plan. So we'll take that into account as we do our work and try to balance those different viewpoints. Okay. That takes me to, let me get through that. Right. I just wanted to let the SAU governing board know that the Hollis School District controls the rent for the SAU building at 4 Lund Lane. We are presently working with the Hollis Board in discussing that because back in 2021, they had the intent to review the rent every 3 years and make a decision. So that would be up this year. So we'll be discussing that in our November meeting, so we can decide if it could stay status quo, it could be an increase. For those of you who don't know, the rent that is collected is then taken and goes into the maintenance trust for the SAU building at 4 Lund Lane that is overseen by the Hollis School Board. So when we recently did the second floor bathroom renovation at the SAU, that came out of the SAU41 Maintenance Trust Fund, which is the accumulation of the rent money. I think the question that we wrestle with in Hollis is very similar to what we're wrestling with in Brookline. We're starting to run out of space, and we need to start looking at, what are space solutions, not only for the SAU, but even for some of our buildings. So you'll see the rental of property policy FAC in there, just to provide people context that are either new to the SAU governing board or haven't been around since we've had a rent discussion.
So I'll interrupt for a moment. We've completed the 30 minutes for public input and have had none, so I'm officially closed public input session at 6:59.
Okay. In your board packet, Kelly has provided us 2 memos. And we are going to deliberate on both of those, so with the chair's permission, I'll just move to deliberations.
There was an item under discussion of the BA certification reports. Are you going to roll that into discussion?
That's going to be the 1A, because it's a certification memo. Originally, we were going to discuss it, and then Kelly and I talked, and there is a monetary piece to this. So making a decision tonight allows us to potentially start saving money, if that's the way the board would like to go. Okay? So to start off with, though, is the first one is a memo from Kelly regarding the treasurer's stipend. As you know, our longtime treasurer passed away, and as a result, we were forced to get new treasurers. And we looked at that from a budgetary standpoint and realized that what we were paying had not been looked at in over 10 years. So in Bedford, the treasurer gets $1,700 a year. In Milford, it's $4,500. Oyster River, which is in Durham, is $2,400. Wyndham is $6,800. Amherst is $4,000. Mount Vernon is $2,200. And Sauhegan is $3,500. We looked at our volume compared to some of the districts I just mentioned, did some discussions at the SAU, and we are recommending that we increase the stipend to $1,700 per year per school district. So you'll see that memo coming to each of your individual boards, and $1,275 per year for the SAU, which is 75% of the school district amount. And that's because the SAU functions are a little less in volume than Hollis, Brookline, or the co-op. We'd like to make the effective date November 1st, 2023, and would like to get this on a regular schedule to be reviewed every 3 years so that we're not going for a long period of time with a stipend.
Do we have current policies in place that ensure a regular periodic review of these stipends? And do you recommend maybe creating them, not unlike what we just saw for the rent?
Right.
something similar.
We could go that route, Rob, or the thing we can do is we can make it more of a procedure and build it into our SAU procedures, just like we will be discussing the rent in Hollis. Once we get it on the books, as I would say, between Kelly, Gina, and I, one of our calendars is going to have that regular review.
Yeah, either policy or procedure is adequate to my mind, as long as it's written down and it's not tribal knowledge that could get lost when this board rolls over.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. I think these stipends are more in line with what the position requires, and I hope that the board would be willing to consider them. If they do, we were provided a motion by our business manager that I'd be happy to read if you'd like.
Question for you, can you just elaborate a little bit about what the responsibilities and workload are for a treasurer?
The treasurer is included on the district's emails to approve all the purchase orders and requisitions for that time period, usually for that month or 2 weeks. The treasurer then comes in on a monthly basis, meets with the business office to discuss the purchase orders, what's going on, and to reconcile the bank statements with the office. So they are in usually about every 2 weeks, correct, Kelly? Yeah, 2 weeks to a month. And a kind of another built-in safety level between the two board members who are signing manifests, to the treasurer doing the backup on the manifest, to the budget people for each of the districts, to Kelly's office.
So there's a regular expectation that these individuals are coming to the SAU physically
They are
doing work.
physically there, they stop in, they say hi, I mean, they kind of become like staff members. You know, they're regular individuals who we expect, they schedule their time with the business office, it's usually a set meeting, and they go over everything that they need to.
And I'd say unlike a board member that is doing the manifests, we're doing that electronically, so it doesn't require an appointed board member to come in physically to these offices and work and spend time and sitting down.
And these individuals assist us with preparations of materials for the auditors, available for the auditors for any questions.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a board member, you may have already gotten the question from the auditors, are you aware of any fraud? Which is a standard question that they ask X number of board members every time we have an audit, and it's done randomly, so it's not the chair, it's just whoever they select. The treasurers are automatically asked that, you know, and are they aware of anything?
The only thing I notice is in the comparison, do the districts, which of the districts to which we've compared ourselves handle multiple budgets? You know what I mean? Because we have...
Like multiple districts?
Well, even if it's a single, I don't know the construction of them, because are these numbers, should they be compared total cost to the cost of all four of our treasurers? Or are these for an individual person who handles one budget, or are these for the cost to handle multiple budgets? I'm just curious how these numbers relate to the amount of budgets they have to handle.
Well, if you look at SAU39, they give you the three different costs of the treasurer, so it's by individual.
Okay.
So we're proposing $1,700 for Brookline, Hollis, and the co-op, and $1,275 for the SAU.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I didn't know Sohegan was a co-op.
Correct. And we were paying $3,600.
So close.
Thank you.
Are you okay if I provide the motion that was provided in the memo?
You can if you'd like, or...
Okay. A motion by member to approve an increase to the treasurer's stipend from $600 to $1,275 per year effective November 1st, 2023, to include a 3-year review process.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
One question I have, is there any stipulation that the treasurer position needs to be different individuals for each district, or could potentially there be one person getting paid for each of these roles?
Well, the Brookline treasurer needs to be a Brookline resident. The Hollis treasurer needs to be a Hollis resident, and the co-op and the SAU could be from either town. So our past treasurer was Brookline and the SAU and co-op, and Hollis was separate. We prefer to have multiple people in the roles because, again, it's less taxing on them. It assists them in focusing, especially in the audit, because they're not confusing which audit they're dealing with. So as there may be a need at some point that, say, the Brookline person is also doing the co-op, just because you put the word out and nobody comes forward. But that's not our preference.
I would just add that the Brookline treasurer and the Halls treasurer are voted on, and the
Right.
co-op treasurer and the SAU treasurer are appointed positions.
Okay,
So they're on the March ballot.
I see.
Right.
And I'm just putting this out there, this body doesn't feel a need that we need to have some sort of stipulation or anything. I don't necessarily see it, but I'm just trying to cover the bases.
I would caution you, because it's tougher and tougher to get people to accept roles.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sensitive to that as well, so, yep.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to increase the stipend from $600 to $1,275 effective November 21st, excuse me, November 1st, 2023. Unanimous?
Yep.
It is good. I'll do that.
The next memo was an agenda adjustment in regards to BA certification, and it's a change in requirements. The New Hampshire Department of Education has recently eliminated the certification requirements for the business administrators positions effective June 30th, 2023. In relationship to the New Hampshire retirement system, the governing board needs to decide when to remove the requirement for this certification from the position. The removal will cause the BA's position's classification to go from teacher to employee. The governing board has two options on the timing of the removal of the requirement from the job description. When the certification for the current BA expires, which is 6/30/26, or any time now and between 6/30/26. The SAU could save approximately $4,000 this year prorated and approximately $6,000 in FY25 because of this change from going from a teacher to an employee. If the governing board chooses to do this sooner rather than later, I have a motion to that effect. This is something that Kelly, Gina, and I have talked about. Kelly supports it. We just finished going through the certification process, and now they have eliminated. I think they have eliminated it for a wide variety of reasons, but the biggest one being there is just a lack of people to do the job, and to add a certification on top of that to somebody who might have been an executive in the business world or a CPA or have many of these skills. It was something that years ago, your business office always got certified through the state, and it was separate and unique. It was kind of a process where in a lot of towns, when I started, the person would start as a bookkeeper and work their way up the ranks and eventually get their certification and become the business administrator. And now it's a very complex job with multiple financial requirements, audits, and things that didn't exist a number of years ago. And I think they're trying to do this to increase the pool of candidates, and that's just my opinion. But in talking with Kelly, we do view this as a cost savings. It won't have a negative effect on us as an SAU, and we hope the board supports it. We'd like to do it for November 1st. So take the motion in that tonight, make the vote, and then we'd be able to save the $4,000 this year.
A couple of questions.
Yep.
Is it only removing the requirement? I guess the issue is, can someone get certified and work in a district that doesn't require the certification? Will they be classified as certified or not certified in terms of how they are classified as a teacher versus an employee? Do you follow my question?
Yes, I think everybody is going to be classified as an employee by 2026.
Will the certification process still exist, do you think?
No, I don't.
I don't think there will be an avenue for it.
Right.
So even if you wanted to, there's no
Right.
And
certification classes to go to.
Right.
Well, the ASBO, which is the Association of School Business Officials, they are the ones that they have a program for certification. I suppose you could still take those classes that they offer, but I don't believe that they will be offering a certification.
And also understand, like, I'll use Kelly as an example. She had been with us for a number of years prior to becoming the BA and understood the role in and out, yet had to go through a certification process that was time-consuming, taxing, and in many instances, she was training people that were coming from the business world because education is so different. So I don't think there's any negative to it.
Is there any alternate type of requirement that a district can use to provide, to use the qualification to ensure the skill sets are there? Is there something to use instead of?
Well, you could, I mean, the ASBO that I mentioned that is offering these courses, that's relatively new. When I got my first certification, I went through the the National ASBO, and they have what they call an SFO, which is a School of Finance Official Certification. So that is still available to anyone, but the key is that it can't be in the job description for the job that you require the certification.
Would that certification that you just outlined, since it's not officially the business administrator certification, reclassify the individual as a teacher again, do you think?
No, probably not.
Okay.
But I would caution you to require that, because that would go against everything Andy just said about trying to find a position, or trying to find a person to fill the position.
That's a separate discussion, and Kelly?
So I'm sorry if this is like obtuse, maybe this should be clear to me. The savings that the district or the SAU would see are from contributions to the state retirement fund, so, I guess my question, and it's personal, I guess, but like, does this then affect Kelly's retirement benefits?
No.
You know, like, is she gonna, you know, the person who's in these positions, will they be
It's just how the pool gets filled to then distribute, so it's not on a personal level. See, we make contributions based on our various staff people. It goes into the pool for NHRS, and then the person's withdrawal is based on their own individual pay and years of service.
Okay, so it's not a different, benefit received based on whether you're classified as an employee or a teacher.
Right, it only affects the district's contribution.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with my contribution
Or your,
what I'll get.
what you'll get. Okay.
If you recall, we had a similar conversation when we converted the Director of Student Services to Assistant Superintendent of Student Services. There was a cost savings in the mandatory contributions the district had to make, which is an advantage of calling that position the Assistant Superintendent. Currently, it's Director of Student Services based on certifications of the individual, which classifies them as that individual that the district then has to contribute more for NHRS.
Okay.
And can I just point out to anybody watching at home, the person we're speaking to off camera is Kelly Seeley, our business administrator. If you couldn't hear her.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to restate it, it saves us money because the state does not require us to pay in the same amount for somebody who's an employee instead of a teacher.
That's correct.
But it does not affect the retirees'
Compensation.
benefits or retirement funds available to them.
And that's correct.
Okay.
Both of those are correct.
Okay.
Kelly,
Question.
Great question, because I was about to ask it.
Same.
Yeah.
Oh, telepathy.
So I have a motion. It says, motion by member to remove the certification requirement from the business administrator's job description, resulting in an NHRS reclassification from teacher to employee, effective date 11/1/23.
So moved.
I'll second it.
The only question I have is, should it be October 31st rather than November 1st to have it be, to hit a deadline for?
Sure, it doesn't, it really
I
doesn't
just don't know
matter.
where the,
The only, I mean, that's one big difference. I'm just making sure we have enough time to process the application because we have to submit a new application.
I didn't know if it was on a monthly basis and whether having you be classified at the start of the, it's like the whole thing with health insurance. I know if you're.
No, this one
That's
is
right.
on a pay, this would be on a pay period basis, actually,
Okay.
so.
That's fine. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you for bringing this to us.
Now that it passed, will we be showing those savings in the next round of the SAU budget that we're working on?
We could, yes.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah, we would,
Increase the reserve fund once
Yep,
again.
yep. Can I turn you
No,
over
you-
to the policies?
Either of you or the policy chair.
Okay.
I think you can go for it, Gina.
Okay, so we're looking at policy ECAF, audio and video surveillance on the bus, third and adopt. Looking for, could we have a motion so we can discuss?
So moved.
Second.
Who's second?
Me.
Okay, so one challenge with SAU policy is that we meet so infrequently that we can't remember what we did last time. And so this is a good example of that. So,
Is there a doc, because it's not showing up in board?
it is a
It's there,
document.
yeah.
Did it show up? Okay, yeah, took a while.
Sorry about that. So, we discussed it at length. The only change that we made was relative to the retention of the audio and video surveillance on the school buses. And that's based on the fact that we retain the content based on a lot of different factors, but most importantly, the technology that's available on the bus. So the recordings are recorded over. In the wintertime, the buses need to run longer to warm up, and so therefore the video starts running when the bus turns on. So we aren't able to set a date or a time that's very specific because it varies based on the time of year, but also if one particular bus also does an athletic run, then that video is running longer for the day and then is written over sooner. So, and then also technology changes over time, and so if a camera breaks, a new one is installed, which has a different lifespan than the prior one potentially. So the updated language would be the superintendent is charged with establishing additional administrative procedures consistent with this policy to address the length of time which any audio it should say audio or video recording is retained, ownership of the recording, limitations on who may view and listen to the recording, and provisions for erasing or destroying the recording.
You want to say digital recording instead of this, but trying to use it elsewhere? The only thing is, I thought that, one of them you can do without permission, and the other you can't.
The audio, you need to have a public hearing. So throughout, it's audio and video, so it should say audio and video.
And I'll just say that the change that we made to the retention to this paragraph came right from the sample policy from the NHSBA. Yes.
The other question I have is, you've now introduced the superintendent having oversight on the ownership and viewing, which wasn't in the area that was superseding, as far as I can read it. Because we
I believe the
have,
only change was in section 3.
right, but if you look at the language includes giving permissions to the superintendent that are addressed elsewhere, so there's a certain duplication or overlap.
What do you mean, Tom?
In three was strictly about retention.
Correct.
But the proposed wording also deals with ownership and viewing. And then section 4 deals with reviewing. So, I don't know if the sample was a consolidated permission where we have segregated it.
No, it was separate sections, but if you read in section 4, it does say that the recordings may be reviewed only by the following persons and only after expressly authorized by the superintendent or their designee. So it.
There's a bit of I see a bit of a conflict between the two. Because 4 restricts who we give permission to. Who the superintendent would give permission to. 3 seems to give full reign.
So maybe we'll
I'm just wondering why, if we've got 4, you need to have the language about viewing and reviewing in it. Is this
It was third and adopt.
Tom, may I ask a question of you? In that section 3, your concern is with the view and listen portion. If that item in the list was struck, would that address your concern? Meaning, it would say, beginning, recording is retained, comma, ownership of the recording, comma, and provisions for erasing or destroying the recordings, period. Since it's the viewing and listening.
I'm just looking to see if that's the only.
Otherwise, this seems redundant.
Yes, I believe the section between commas, starting with limitations, ending with recording, are the areas that I view as being overlapped.
Okay. And I think Gina, you were mentioning audio and video. We were using just the word recording to encompass.
Well, it says audio recording.
Right, I think we weren't going to put audio in it.
Oh, so just strike.
Just strike the word audio.
Okay.
And so it just says recording.
Okay.
Length of time which any recording is retained, that covers both.
Okay, perfect. So we're gonna strike the word audio, and then we're gonna strike limitations on who may view and listen to the recording.
Yes.
To be consistent in number 5, do you want to strike audio or video? Because it looks like maybe that was missed when you switched it to just recording.
In the event.
A recording.
Audio recordings appear. I don't know.
That's because they have to talk about RSAs.
And in the second part of that, too.
Just a second. I'm fine with that, but I will defer to the policy chair.
Don't do that. Well, no, Amy and I are just looking at the, at section 1 under purpose. They're separated because of the RSA provisions in regards to audio being captured as well as video. But everywhere else, we were calling them just recordings. So I'm fine with making the change in both 4 and 5.
What's being changed in 4?
Well, right, the line right above calls out audio and video recording. The superintendent is authorized to consult the district's
Okay.
attorney relative to the use and retention of a recording. And then 5 has it called out twice. I'm fine with both of those, if my fellow committee members are good with that as well.
Is there, can I just ask a question? Is there a reason why the RSA calls out audio versus video? Are there certain rights associated? So you can blur out, when you're doing this in practice and showing it to a parent, you can blur out faces, but you can't blur out audio. So you're
Like voices in the
able to hear
background.
multiple children that legally have a right. So I didn't know if there was a purpose that we might be missing. I don't know the answer, but, I mean, if the RSA calls it audio and video, I don't know why we're hesitating to call it that. And if they're separating it out.
They call them separate because a lot of times there's video with no audio. But the way that it's used here, it's any recording.
We're just using
would have
generic
those.
recording.
Whether it's audio or video or
Correct.
audio, video, okay.
I have a question. In section 4, the last, person identified as someone who could review as authorized by the superintendent as a parent or guardian of any student involved in disciplinary proceedings. So is there a presumption that this is always going to be in the context of a disciplinary proceeding? So for example, if like a child has a medical emergency and the video needs to be reviewed, like, does it need to say that? Does it need to say involved in disciplinary proceedings?
Specifically, that's in reference to, one, this disciplinary becomes part of the student record, so that's why that's called out like that. But it's really, a request goes to the superintendent in writing, and the superintendent makes a determination.
But I think the point she's making is.
Right, is there an additional opportunity?
Or does it need to be?
It's gonna come to the waivers, and it's gonna have to be maintained.
But you would not, this would not give
Allow
you
you.
permission to allow the parent guardian to see it unless it was for disciplinary use. If it was.
A seizure on the bus and a
something
parent
like
wanted
that,
to, yeah.
the way it's written now, you couldn't give them permission to see it.
Not under this
So,
policy.
so I'll tell you, when we were reviewing this policy, parent guardian wasn't even on the list of somebody who could read it, or who could watch it, excuse me. They weren't an available person that could view the recordings. We wanted to make sure that they could, because that has had incidents in different districts where they want to see what their child is being accused of doing, like prove they did it kind of things. So that's why they got added that way. I definitely appreciate the other reasons why you would want to see what happened. Do you think we should take this back to committee, Gina, and bring it back
In December?
in December?
Sure.
Could I also,
Okay.
I'm kind of sticking on this
Or could-
audio and video recording.
Mm-hmm.
Was that specifically from the template? Was that distinction in the template that we built this on, or did we add that later? Because I'm concerned about, by getting rid of it and just generically calling it recording, that legally we might be running afoul. So if we're sending it back to committee, can we just check that you're not going to run afoul, because
Yeah.
if it was in the template to begin with, my feeling is it was there for a reason.
Yeah, we can double check.
And it may be technical in nature legally, so.
Yeah, because I think there's, again, Gina was mentioning that the recording covers the and. If there are different rules for each of them, we would call them out. But we can
Yeah.
certainly make sure that we're on the up and up.
Okay, so we can, Chris, if you want to amend your motion. to
Third reading.
I will amend my motion for third reading
Second.
and not adopt.
Yes, I will second that.
Wait,
Following up what just happened?
did we just end discussion?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry,
No,
okay.
she's amending the motion.
Gotcha.
We can continue a discussion, but the motion that is currently being discussed is not.
It's just the accept,
It
right.
is not a final adoption motion.
Gotcha, thank you.
Is there further discussion?
Well, this is just a suggestion to go back to policy. Maybe something could be given as far as giving permission to a parent or guardian with the discretion, I'm not wordsmithing this here, but of the superintendent, because I could think of other situations where a parent might need or feel the need to view as well, in addition to medical or being at fault in a situation, so.
I would add to
Yeah.
that, could there be an escalation path that if that were not to be given, that the parents have an opportunity to go before the board to be contested? Well, because if it stops, then what other,
I understand the need.
Where does
for
the parent
appeal.
go?
I understand the need for appeal. I'm not sure, because we had this discussion when it was originally brought up, whether the board should even be involved. Because one of the things that often is asked is that they view it so that they can make a decision of what's there and what are the risks and concerns.
Right.
Because oftentimes the decision is based on what's shown and who's visible, that sort of thing. I don't think you want board members having to be obligated to view the recording.
especially with children content. So, yeah, I can see the
But-
conundrum there.
But
Yeah, I mean, I also want to caution, really, it is limited in scope and who can see any video. It is always a request in writing. It's not that it's, widely viewed. We have memorandums of understanding with our police departments so that it isn't just,
it's a very
it's
restricted
very
audience.
restricted, and I would hate, so I do appreciate going back for a fourth read and getting legal advice on this, because I don't want to open it up
Yeah.
to where we put ourselves in jeopardy legally, but I hear everyone's,
Is there a scenario that you could share that would drive a superintendent's decision to deny a parent or guardian to see tape? Is there, wouldn't know what that scenario is,
I
but,
mean, we do deny parent or guardians to view the tape depending on a lot of things, our ability to blur other students involved. And there are requests that don't meet the standard for allowing it to be reviewed.
That's where it came down to the disciplinary procedure.
and is that denial in writing to the parent or guardian, or is it just vocal?
Usually it's a phone call discussion, but if they want something in writing, then we type something out and send it off. and
Okay,
go ahead.
all right, thank you.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Just a note of clarity, where it says the superintendent is charged with establishing additional, back in 3, additional administrative procedures consistent with this policy. Have those procedures already been established, and where are they? They in like, where do they live?
So when we authorize an account for the video, it is clear. I don't know if you provide something written that's standard for everybody, but it's clear in terms of the training involved with who can see it, who's not supposed to see it, when the cameras are set up, so that there's like live, well, this is a bus, that's different, but yes,
Part of it.
I mean, this is for
part of it-
retention, I'm sorry.
Part of it is,
That's fair.
is training, for instance, so that staff members, let's say a parent calls up and says, I want to see this. It's how the staff member responds to the request. It's in a training thing. I don't think it's specifically documented other than making them aware of policy.
I don't think that's what I was asking. I was asking about in retention, about the length of time which any audio recording is retained and ownership of the recording.
That's on record retention policy.
Okay.
HBR.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was clear about. Only other question I had was in one. This is just, I mean, for me, this is my first reading, so please forgive me. But the question says, the last line is that audio recordings in conjunction may also be in accordance with the provisions, oh, sorry, wrong one. Stating that students are subject to being recorded on the school bus at any time in accordance with these provisions. So it sounds to me like students aren't subject to it. It sounds like it is. Subject to means this could happen, it could not happen. But it sounds like this is consistently happening. Just for my own clarity, or anybody who's listening, like, is this consistently happening? Like, is there a video recorder happening all the time, or is this something that is sometimes turned on?
So the buses are all equipped with cameras. Sometimes the cameras malfunction. When Hall's Transportation was purchased by STA, the cameras were all upgraded, and that's less likely now than before. But there's always a possibility that either there's no visibility for whatever reason, whether there's somebody walking, a chair, etc., or there's just a malfunction. So there are signs stating that there are cameras, but sometimes things
Got you.
malfunction.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know if they're checked regularly?
Yes.
Because the bus companies are checking, but in between those periods, you could have a, okay.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? So we are voting on third reading, and it will continue to come back again.
Yeah.
All those in favor of approval of third reading? Thank you.
All right, moving on to policy CB, school superintendent, second reading.
I move to accept a second reading of policy CB, school superintendent.
Second.
Okay, so you saw this last December, and we've made no changes. We'll bring it forward for second reading. Any questions?
Does this say anything about the certification requirement? Or is that just our,
That's business administrator,
Mm-hmm.
not superintendent.
no, but in our contract, we have a requirement that they hold certain certification.
Yeah, it's opening up as Microsoft Word, so it's taking a
Is that a state requirement?
Yes.
Okay, so the fact that they have to abide by statutes.
This is his responsibility.
And DOE rules.
Correct.
And DOE rules. I agree. Excuse me.
We have motion?
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you so much. All right, the next on the list is policy CBR, duties of the superintendent. We'd like to move this forward for a second reading.
I move to amend section C to end with superintendent, insert D beginning with such local district services, renumber the remaining paragraph.
Changes are in section C, the superintendent, And then section D. So this is straight from the New Hampshire Code of Administrative Rules, Part ED 302. So this is not our draft, it is literally straight from ED 302, 01, and 02. And so we did a cross-reference to see if by any chance those have been updated since 2013. And the updates were as just described.
The wording is awkward when you separate them. If D is a standalone.
I would encourage you to speak to your local lawmakers.
No, I'm just saying that it's making a reference and it's not clear where it says such local district services, which,
I think it refers to B.
Oh, it's A2. Be responsible for the overall administrative and leadership services.
Do you have a second for the motion?
Did.
Or you did, yeah.
any discussion, additional discussion? All those in favor?
I'm looking at policy BDB, board officers. We are looking for a second reading.
I move to amend under the heading of treasurer by inserting or their designee following treasurer, and for following responsible, and accept the second reading of policy BDB, board officers, as amended.
Second.
Okay, so you last saw this in December also, and as you heard, the very minor changes are being proposed.
Yeah, I
What's
think
the second one you said? I see that, oh, they designate, what's the other change?
it's just between responsible and presenting, it's missing the word for.
Responsible for presenting.
Okay, so it's not.
It's not.
That's,
Right, it
that's
was in the
the
motion,
amended,
yep.
yep.
So this was based on feedback when we read it in December, the desire that a board member present the SAU budget, the public hearing, the budget hearing in December.
So this is to make it so that doesn't have to happen, right?
Well, so the superintendent had been presenting the budget,
Yep.
but then this group thought it
Somebody
should
ought
be
to
the
say.
treasurer. And so then there was the piece of, well, what if the treasurer's not available at the public hearing? So then this provides some flexibility for potentially another member of the SAU budget subcommittee. Whoever the treasurer
Or anyone.
designates. Right.
Any discussion? Philosophically, let's do it, but I understand the practice. Why is it unbelievable? You should have predicted that.
We did, don't worry.
I'm not gonna vote against it. Give me some slack. Turn me as a grumpiness. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Take a picture of his hand up.
We're laughing with you, Tom.
I don't think so. Anything else you want to?
No, I just let the board know, Tom had requested, I thought it was a great idea, I put an organizational structure out, just so you can see all the different positions that we have. That really hasn't changed, but we just wanted to update the board.
Is this available on the website so community members can see?
We can do that.
Yeah, that'd be very, very useful.
Can I just ask, where does Emmy fall in, the compliance and communication specialist? Is she under you, Gina?
Correct. We'll add that.
I was wondering the same thing. I was trying to.
Can you just speak a little bit to the apparent reorganization of the business office?
Oh, happy to. Director of Business Operations, that's the daily, day-to-day operation of the second floor. That's Linda. Many of you may or may not recall when we did the salary increases last year, that she was one of the highlighted positions, that we were changing just the title. There was no pay increase to that. And it was just more to recognize her skill set for getting us ready for not only the audits, but just basically that day-to-day person for our accounts receivable, accounts payable, those people to go. So it allows Kelly to start to focus more on larger, vision type of questions as opposed to just day-to-day operations.
We, at one point, we had 2 assistant business administrators, is that?
Correct.
And then we had 2 accounting specialists.
We still have the accounting
Yeah,
specialist.
what's the business office specialist?
It's this, I would sort of call it the swing position. So they do, they handle most of the SAU stuff, payroll and accounts receivable and accounts payable. And then, so it's a much smaller position, and then they support the 2 accounting specialists based on workflow needs.
So is Linda sort of like, I'll call it like a player coach, where she's an assistant business administrator for the 2 districts that she had before, and she has some additional responsibility beyond that?
Yes, running the day-to-day questions of the accounting specialist and the business office specialist.
So does the business office specialist in theory support any and all districts that might need?
Correct. Yeah, if somebody was out and we were running payroll, she is well versed in all the districts. That's it from the administration.
So in human resources, we've got the director.
Yep.
Specialist, is that assistant position filled currently?
That the receptionist, the HR assistant and receptionist is in the process of being filled.
Okay. Will not be the person that's you see when you walk in?
Correct. But they'll do more around the criminal background checks.
Are there any other positions besides that that currently aren't filled on this chart?
No.
Congratulations.
Quickly.
I don't know how long.
Thank you, Andy. Does anyone have anything else before going to non-public?
We have to go into non-public?
Pardon?
I said, do we have to go into non-public?
Yes, we do. At this point, I would like to ask the report out for the process observer.
We're ahead of schedule, and considering that we started late because we all had some computer IT issues, we did great. I think that the policy went a lot faster than we anticipated.
Agreed.
Okay, I would like to have a motion to enter non-public session under RSA 91-A, Roman numeral 2. This says A, but it's not compensation. Oh, yeah, a dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we need a roll call vote, go into non-public.
Krista, aye.
Rob, aye.
Amy, aye.
Carol Roy, aye.
Tom, aye.
Kelly.
Oh, Kelly, aye.
Colleen, aye.
Cindy, aye.
And I.
Beth, aye. Andrea, aye.
Okay, we are in non-public at 7:51. Did anyone need a minute before we start? Anyone?
Just give